Let me know once you are ready. We will start. You already started?
Yes.
So we will start. It will come. Not worry.
Okay.
Okay, we will start.
Start.
वटविटपि समीपे भूमिभागे निषन्नं सकलमुनिजनानां ज्ञानदातारमारात् त्रिभुवनगुरुमीशं दक्षिणामूर्तिदेवं जननमरणदुःखछेददक्षं नमामि चित्रं वटतरोर्मूले वृद्धा शिष्या गुरुर्युवा गुरोस्तु मौनं व्याख्यानं शिष्यास्तु छिन्न संशयाः ॐ नमः प्रणवार्ताय शुद्ध ज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः ॐ भूरम्बांस्यनलो निलोम्बरमहर्नाथो हिमांशुः इत्याभाति चराचरात्कमिदं यस्यैव मूर्त्यष्टकं नान्यत्किञ्चन विद्यते विमृशतां यस्मात् परस्मात् विभोः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः Sri Dakshinamurtaye. So we are getting into the 9th shloka. So this is called, some people call it as Dakshinamurty Stotram, but this is called Dakshinamurty Ashtakam. Although I have used the word Dakshinamurty Stotram, many also says Dakshinamurty Stotram. Generally this is called Dakshinamurty Ashtakam. So now we have 10 shlokas. 8 is over. We are now going on to the 9th shloka. So, if you may recall, the 8th shloka was sort of quickly recapitulating the ideas in the 7 shlokas. That is what we saw. The notion of Maya as a framework, which tries to help us understand this empirical world and all that. So, in a way, it was summarized with 8 shlokas. So the last 2 shlokas are used to do something more. I think the 10th shloka is a Palashruti. But this 9th shloka is a very, again, as we saw in Dakshinamurty Stotram, every shloka is very deep and a very profound sort of idea. This 9th shloka brings something very interesting. So I need to do a preamble before we get into this. See, the first thing, it has been our culture, and not only our culture, I think it's also our practice. Mere knowledge is of no use. I mean, one can, read Vedanta thoroughly, by heart it, and then you wake me up at like 2 o'clock. I get up and recite. I know all concepts. I know what is Brahman. I know what is Maya. This is one part. Knowledge is one part, but what is very important is, in fact, there are many, actually a vast majority of us are like that variety, if you really ask me. Is too much of knowledge can only bloat our ego. It will not bring humility. It is more and more, if it goes to the brain, the body becomes much more erect. You look like this rather than even looking. Don't even look at this plane. You start looking like this. So, mere knowledge at best can bloat one's ego. We have our own little experience. So if you look at our broad scheme of things, they have subtly and overtly, sometimes explicitly, they have very clearly moved to the next, saying knowledge is only useful when it is put to use. Knowledge is valuable only when it gets into swanubhava. So therefore, anubhuti is the ultimate knowledge. Knowledge that is available in a book is okay, which I have also committed to my memory. So I have the expertise of reeling out slokas at the strike of a button or something. But I think the real progress that we need to make is somewhere jnana must see, jnana has two parts. You start with jnana, but you have to get into bhakti, and then there is another jnana which comes after that. That is the vijnana. So this is a very, very important idea. Now we will understand it from our because I teach some of these concepts in a different way. All that has come into my mind when I teach management. Huh? I realize that this sloka I can now next time use it when I actually talk about those ideas. That is the huge connection I got with this sloka. See, I teach very often. I teach what is called creating a learning organization, which is a very popular topic now. And there is one Nanakoa who wrote a book called The Knowledge Creating Company and so on. So there he actually narrates a very interesting story. I will narrate that story. I used to narrate that in the other classroom. That echoes with this. What happened? Master Shita Electric Company, they made a bread toasting machine. Machine was R&D was done, and they started. They put it into the market. What was happening was there was a problem with this machine. This is the raw clay, the dough, the green dough is put into that and it is baked. So the bread comes, the bread making machine. The problem that they were facing was if you put the temperature at a particular level, then the outside gets burnt, the inside cooks properly. If you reduce the temperature, the outside is okay, the inner dough is green. So there is a problem now. The R&D is not good, the machine is not good because you are not going to buy a bread making machine where you have to either lose the outer portion or you have to lose the inner portion. There is nothing in between. So this was the problem. So these people were trying and they tried and tried. They did not know how to solve that. So this company did a very unconventional, took an unconventional step. What they knew was in the Osaka International Hotel, the bread they served was absolutely fabulous. So what they did is they sent four R&D engineers. I think two computer programmers, R&D engineers. Four of them they sent them to Osaka Hotel for study. And what were they doing? The chef was preparing the dough. He was putting it into his machine and making the bread. These fellows are just watching it. Understudy. These R&D engineers, software engineers were in a 8-week, 2-month internship in Osaka International Hotel with the chef. So, of course, they must have asked a few questions. Chef knows only bread making. He would have answered his question answers in bread making and so on. And so this all happened. But these people observed something. This chef was, twisting it in a particular way. Every time when he was making the dough, he was in a complex way twisting the dough. It was not simply sort of mixing the ingredients with water and creating that, substance. So they came back, and this is a story in that book. So they came back, and then I do not know what they understood. They must have understood something. They came back, and then they re-engineered their product. And at least the book calls, they came with what is called a twist dough process. So now the machine will do something before it is baking, which means it is going to twist the dough a little bit, as they saw that chef doing something. And then the story was that it was a runaway success. The product was a big success. All that. This is a story which is available in that book. We teach it also. Now look at this whole story. This story actually talks about knowledge and how knowledge gets into gainful use. We are in the same problem. That's why I'm bringing that story. Okay? So, the point is this. Knowledge is always tacit. No knowledge is explicit. Knowledge is inside people. There's no knowledge outside. At the end of the day, knowledge always resides in the purest form, in a tacit form. Now, the real challenge is that tacit knowledge has to come explicit. So, this knowledge transfer and useful process is actually a four-step process. Knowledge is always implicit or tacit. You have to make it explicit. So, that chef had a knowledge which was implicit. These people in internship would have asked some questions. He would have answered something. But this was the process by which that knowledge became explicit. So when a knowledge transfer happens, it is only explicit knowledge which can transfer. And the knowledge that I have received is explicit. I just heard you. And I understood it whatever way I thought I will understand given whatever my limitation. So knowledge, so from explicit, the first step is knowledge become tacit. I'm sorry, from tacit, it becomes explicit. The internal knowledge comes out. Either I write a book, I take a class, or you observe me doing something, or I teach you something. It can be in whatever format. So this knowledge which is implicit, step 2, it becomes explicit. That person who has a implicit knowledge puts it out. Sankaracharya has put out an implicit knowledge in the form of Dakshinamurty Stotram. It has now become explicit. The equivalence is here. Now what are we going through? We are converting that explicit knowledge into another explicit knowledge, which my explicit knowledge is different from yours. Yours is different from yours, like that. So the third step is this explicit passes on to another medium, maybe another person, which is also explicit. Now the question is, how will it become implicit? So they learnt that this chef was throwing this something he is doing. That's all they learnt. They came and they must have thought about it. They must have internalized it. They must have synthesis must happen. They think about it, they understood it, reworked on it, tried it a little bit, reworked on it, understood it. Now they got the tacit knowledge. This is a 4-step process which we teach. This is what he is coming to this in this shloka. What he is saying is the first 8 slokas that I have told you are tacit. It's a piece of knowledge. Now, this knowledge is of no avail. That way we can gather any amount of knowledge. That's why I said we can memorize, we can reel it out. Any day you ask me, I will tell you a shloka from Gita and all that. All these are okay. In other words, I can read, I frequently give this example only. You can read about sugar and chemical property, physical property, this, that, what is the 1 spoon of sugar, how much will it weigh, how does it look like, how shining it is, all that. There is something called sweetness, which also I have read. Sugar means sweetness. That is only a tacit knowledge. Next time when I put a spoon of sugar into my mouth, now I understood what sugar is. Now I will find out a world of sugar now. I will find out a world of sweetness now. That has to happen. So this is not, although I read it in that book and I taught it, I realized that was our parampara. That is what in Brihadaranya Upanishad, Maitreyi was told by Yajnavalkya. He said, Shrotavyaha, Mantavyaha, Nididhyasitavyaha. So we put that framework in place. So what we said was Shravanam, which is tacit to tacit. We just listen. Somebody brings his implicit knowledge out and make it explicit. So the explicit becomes explicit of another kind. That is Shravanam. Then Mananam. You sort of think about it. I have just heard it. Now I have to do my own homework of what does it mean? Nididhyasanam, which is holding it deeply into you, which means in order to hold it deeply into us, somewhere we have to apply it also. Otherwise, we can't hold it deeply. Whatever we hold deeply is coming out of experience. Not out of because we read a book or we heard it from someone, that's only a starter. The real ultimate purest form of knowledge is the implicit knowledge that every one of us carry, that is called swanubhava or anubhuti. Out of that anubhuti, that nitidhyasana and all that are processes are all intertwined. So this is the framework. This is the framework which, without thinking about this framework, I was actually teaching it. I find this is exactly the framework that we have developed. It's very important to do that. Now, therefore, the fundamental emphasis in our knowledge, parampara, jnana parampara, is don't stop with knowledge. Don't endlessly here and here and here, because where are we going to go with that? Then the question is, then how do we convert it? We have to, again, if we look at some of our cultural practices, lots of our cultural practices were actually tied and built only for this experimentation. Lots of your cultural practices. I will take just one example. You read any of our text, even Gita, we have seen it in many places. They always keep saying that Dhamma and Shama are very important. Dhamma is control of the Bahiranga Sadhanaha. Karmendriya Jnanendriyanam Nigraham is Dhamma, which means you shout at me, should I shout back at you or give you a blow? If I am on that plane, I have not even sorted out my Dhamma. Then Shama. Shama is at the thought level. So violence need not be created at a physical level. It can be created at the mental level also. Bad things can be done. Doing it at a physical level is 1 degree. A finer degree is doing it in the mind. So that is the Shama. So now the question is, do we have to keep on reading Dhamma and Shama, or do we have to practice it? Obviously, if we keep reading about Dhamma and I know everything about Dhamma, then, I can only have this ahankara to say, I will explain to you very well. Somebody talks something about Dhamma, I will correct them. I say, no, this is not like this. In this text, it has been told like this. It has to be, and so on and so forth. Now, how do I do sense control? I mean, we are talking about sense control. So, how do I do sense control? In fact, that's where a lot of our religious practices are actually upasanas. Today, they have taken it out of that sort of dimension, and they have put it in some other dimension and saying there are old style, this doesn't make sense, why should we do it? A whole lot of things they are talking. Now, how do I have sense control? Simple. Amongst many sense control, let us talk about the sense control of the tongue. That itself is a big issue for us. I am just taking as a small example. Now, that is why there are 2 things, if you see, yatis will do very seriously. And there are a lot of people also do it who want to evolve themselves. Yatis practice upavas and mauna vrata. 2 things they do very seriously. They practice mauna vrata on a Ekadashi day or on a Thursday or once in a week, once in 15 days. They don't talk. It's much easy to read about it, virtues of sense control, virtues of tongue control. Every day we may say kama akarshin, manyura akarshin, namo namaha. That we may say. So that is the knowledge level. How do we actually go there? So this upavas is a great idea. Unless we test it, how do we know? What is the point in just talking about it and then reeling out every virtues of it? I don't even know where am I? Can I skip one food is a question. Voluntarily, willingly, happily. No, and you skip a food and thinking about when is tomorrow morning going to come, anxiously waiting for the cup of coffee. Not that. Can you make it as natural as breathing? Just like that I can drop. That is what they were doing. No, you drop. So a lot of these upavas and mauna vrata, I am taking a small example. Now to me it appears it is actually a upasana. It is a upasana of a concept, and that concept is that we need shama and dhamma. And how do we do it? I will have to check it out. No, the best thing is so indriya nigraha. We keep on talking about indriya nigraha. How do I know indriya nigraha? If you read Gandhiji's autobiography, he has done a lot of experiments of that kind. He wanted to check, am I just a bookworm or am I able to really mean what I have understood? So the point is, jnana gets it gets into a beautiful, morphing and flowering only when jnana is followed by upasana. So this whole bhakti is actually upasana. Whole bhakti is actually this path in which the initial knowledge that we have gained, how do we actually put it to practice, test it out, because only then that nididhyasana will happen, only then that jnana will become vijnana. So that is why Shankaracharya, people say Shankaracharya is a very dispassionate, intellectual, and all that. But very clearly in his magnum opus in Viveka Chudamani, he very clearly said, Moksha Karana Samagriyam Bhaktireva Gariyasi. He said, of all raw material that you can use for attaining moksha, bhakti is very, very. Because I find his stotras, this stotra is a very Vedantic kind of stotra. If you look at some of his stotras, bhakti is pouring. Shivanandalagiri, for example, there is one Devi Aparata Kshamapana. Navaratri times, beautiful story. Kuputro Jayeta, Kvachitapi Kumata na Bhavati, like that it comes. Each four-liner is just pouring. It will melt. So from the brain, we have to get to heart somewhere. If it stays in the brain, it can be a serious issue. That's why he said, Moksha Karana Samagriyam Bhaktireva Gariyas. So what he has done in this shloka, so these are all the preamble I am coming to this shloka. What he has done in this shloka is he did not want to leave a lofty set of ideas and just go away. He wanted to tell, do an upasana. Just you internalize the idea by thinking through it a little more elaborate. Upasana, we talked about it, about Upasana in Taittiriya Upanishad Sikshavali in some detail. Upasana is a mechanism where if you cannot grab the original, for many reasons, the original is not available for the Indriyas. See, the Atman is not available for the Indriyas. Or the original is too vast. So I give the example of Indian flag as a representation for India. In India, how do you grasp? I will grasp with a map or a flag. So the flag is actually a upasana of the country. That's the meaning of the word upasana. So he wanted to leave after these 8 shlokas of lofty thoughts, which creates this framework of the world and you and I and so on. He says, spend time on reflecting on it little more deeply. So mere shravanam is not enough. Shrotavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha. So the Shravana to Manana, if you have to go, Upasana is very, very important. Bhakti is one grand form of Upasana. What is Bhakti doing? It is taking one reference of a Murti, one reference of a concept or a Murti, and in it, it wants to see the whole world. That is again a stepping stone. Because out of that, the jnana that we have acquired will get distilled, get more clarified, gets into another level, which is the vijnana. So that is what he is actually trying to bring it. Another way to say is, I feel generally in many things that we do, whether it is materialism or whether it is, in our own self-evolution and so on. I see this trio of Icha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti in a different sense. Icha Shakti is the Shakti I get out of an Icha. It powers me. I am using it in a slightly different sense. Icha Shakti, by that I mean, I want to achieve something that itself is a form of power. That power will drive me to Jnana Shakti. So I will start trying to understand what it is. How do I get it? What is it? What are its features? So that Jnana Shakti, that power, that itself must give us a power to actually try it out. The Kriya must happen out of it. So in that sense, the knowledge is a step. The mumukshutva is a Icha Shakti. The knowledge is a certain kind of a Jnana Shakti. We need a Kriya Shakti which comes through Upasana, which it takes us to the Vijnana, which is the clarified understanding and Swanubhuti, which must happen out of that. He wants to leave that thought. After all these 8 shlokas of thing, so he actually talks about it here. So let us look at this shloka now. He says, Boohu, let me do the Padacheda. Boohu, then because of the Visarga only the Repa, Rakara has come. So if you remove the Rekara, A will remain. Ambamsi. Ambamsi is water. Boohu is the Prithvi. Boohu, Ambamsi, Analaha. See, Alam, I have mentioned this. Alam means enough in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, Alam means enough. Analam means not enough. So when there's a raging fire, anything you put, it will consume. That's why it's called Anala. Anything you put, it will keep on consuming, endless. That's why it's called Anala. Na ala iti Anala. It's not enough. Fire. So, Boohu, Ambamsi, Analaha, Anilaha. Anilaha is water. Okay? Ambaram. Ambaram is space. Cloth is also used. Space. Sky is the biggest cloth you can think of. The proxy for the space is the sky, which is the biggest cloth in some ways actually. So it is talking about the Panchabhutas first. Bhuhu, which is Prithvi. Ambamsi, which is water. Right? Why is water coming again? Oh, water, sorry, correct. Ambamsi is water. Right. And then Anala, which is fire. Anila is not water, it is air. I think that's why I use water twice, I think. Anila is air. And Ambara is the space. So Panchabhutas are first laid out in that part. Bhuhu, Ambamsi, Analo, Anilambaram. Aharnataha. Ahasyanataha, Aharnataha. The Lord of the day, which is sun. I mean, day is made out of, sun is not there, there is no day. So, Aharnataha, that is the Pada Prayoga there, sun. Then Himamshuhu, cool rays, which is moon. Sun is a hot ray, moon is a cool rays. So, Himamshuhu. Then Puman. Puman is Purusha. Purusha is not the masculine Purusha. Don't understand Purusha as masculine Purusha. Living being is called Purusha. Okay? So, living being, actually you should take it in a more general sense, living being. So, there are 8 things told there. Panchabhutaha, and then sun, moon, and the living beings. That's the first line. Okay? Iti abhati. This is how it manifests, shows up, throws light as. In other words, this is how the world of creation is all about. The world of creation is of these 8. That's what he's saying here. Iti abhati, which is manifesting like this. Chara, achara, atmakam. Moving, non-moving. Which means jada, chit, everything. Basically, unmoving includes not only the tree, it includes the stone and the rock and all that. In other words, chit and jada, the whole universe. So he is saying that the chara and the achara, that which has embodied that, or the soul of all that, charatmakam, acharatmakam, that's what it is coming. Okay? Yasya eva murti ashtakam. This is nothing but the eightfold forms of him. That him is that, the Karana Brahma. That's what it is talking about. So, yasya eva murti ashtakam na anyat kinchana vidyate. There is nothing like that. As in Bhagavad Gita it says, matta parataram na anyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. Mayi sarvamitam protam sutre manigana iva. There also he says, matta parataram na anyat kinchidasti dhananjaya. There is nothing that you can see other than me. So same thing it says, na anyat kinchana vidyate. The kinchana actually emphasizes that if you take all of these out, there is nothing else left. Or even if you take the minutest of a one cell microorganism, there also you will find this. That is the emphasis of the kinchana. Okay? Na anyat kinchana vidyate vimrshatam. Think through it. Vimrshatam, vimrishya. In Bhagavad Gita, 683rd shloka. After 682 shlokas, Krishna says, Vimrshya, I have told you all that I wanted to tell. You decide what you want to do. The greatness of Indian culture, actually. Don't push anything down anybody's throat. That was never our culture. If your samskaras and vasanas are bad, you will go the wrong way. I will put everything on the table. Vimarshya etad, that's what Krishna says to Arjuna. I have told you everything. In the 18th chapter, 7 slokas before he concludes, or 10 slokas before he concludes, which means 690th sloka uses the word Vimarshya. I have told all these, you now think and decide what you think is appropriate and do. In fact, in Devi Aparaya Kshamaapana Stotra, Sankaracharya says, Matsamaha pataki nasti, tossama papagnina. There is nobody who can do more sin than me. There is nobody better than quenching the sin like you. Evam nyatva Mahadevi, yata yogyam tata guru. Shankaracharya never asked for anything. You know this, you do what you think has to be done. That's what that shloka, the Devi Aparaya Kshamaapana Stotra ends like that. Matsamaha pataka nasti, totsama papagnina, evam nyatva Mahadevi, yata yogyam tata guru. So we have been having this culture. I think we should put all the viewpoints on the table. Each one of us have our own samskaras. We are all work in progress only. We are all in different stages of this highway on which we are walking. We should be able to take what fits us. You can't take a medicine which can become an antibody. It throws you out of. I think you should take uchita. That's why in all our sankalpa it says yogyata siddhyartham. You have to first get the yogyata, phala anantaram. Phala prapti yogyata siddhyartham. You first get yourself qualified to get the phala. Then the phala is only one step. It's a hop, step and jump. So the hopping is very important. Then the step and jump will happen. That's why all these purohits they will say, Mahasankalpa they will do, phala yogyata prapti siddhyartham iti they will say like that. Because that is what we need. So yata palasya anugunam prayatnasya anugunam palasya praptihi. Uchita palasya praptihi. In fact, I always do sankalpa only like that. I say prayatnasya anugunam. I can't put little effort or ask a lot. And we should not also ask whatever you want to. You say you decide. Uchita prayatnasya anugunam uchita pala prapti siddhyartham. Yogyata eva avashyakam. Anya sarvam na avashyakam. The others will come. So that is why he says, Vimrshatam, you think about it. Contemplate on it. In this context, it is contemplate that this whole universe. So what is he saying? He's saying, Vimrshatam yasmat parasmat viboho. Panchami vibhakti, yasmat, from him, out of him. Parasmat, he is the, paraha, he is the ultimate. So from him only everything came. Vibhuhu tasya panchami vibhoho. From that Lord of everything, from that only everything came. Vimrshatam. Think like this. What has come out of it? Characharatmakam idam. And it is nothing but his eightfold forms of manifestation. Yasya eva murti ashtakam. This is the manifestable forms, eightfold manifestable forms of him. Who is paravibhuhu. Yaha paravibhuhu. Yasmat parasmat vibhoho. Panchami vibhakti. So from that, all these came, which means all that I have told in the 8 slokas, you have to now contemplate. You seriously think about the possibility of all that being told. That's Upasana that he is pushing us. And Tasmai, that you think about him. Tasmai Shri Gurumurte Namaidam. Sri Dakshinamurty Nama. So that is how this 9th shloka, in a simple artha, stula artha, little sukshma we will see. But basically this shloka is saying knowledge is of no avail if we are not going to the next step. And that is manana, upasana. Bring it in a format that you can make sense. Otherwise, these are all ideas which I know, which are all in my brain. It has not penetrated into my heart. It's all residing in the brain. There's a huge difference between the brain and the heart. What heart can do is hugely impactful in a very positive and in a very strong way. What brain can do is also impactful. Sometimes it can be destructive also. That's why nobody has a brain-to-brain talk. They have a heart-to-heart talk. This is much better and much more powerful, much more intense. So he's saying, connect a pipe between your brain and the heart, and that can be done only through Upasana. So I think knowledge has to give way for practice and Upasana, because the bhakti will soften the knowledge. Knowledge is very raw and very brittle and very, sort of very hard piece. It has to be watered. There's a sloka in Shivandhara which is similar to this. It has to be watered and smoothened and made it much more productive. So that is what he is basically trying to communicate through this shloka, that the 8 shlokas are grand ideas. You get it into you. Swanubhava. We should get that Swanubhava out of all those concepts. That is why he says, do that, reflect on this idea. And in Manasollasa, yes, in this chapter again, 45 shlokas are there. Yes, really explained why did he take Murti Ashtakam, what is all this, why he chose all these 8, all that he is saying. Little bit I will explain that. So, as a precursor to explaining Shloka 9 in Manasollasa, this is what he says. He says, Shattrimshat Tattva Rupasu Parameshwara Murtishu Pratyakshena Upalabhyante Sarvaihi Api Ashtamurtayah. He says, because in chapter 2 he talked about 36 forms, 36 ways by which that unmanifestable Karana Brahma actually manifests. That he talks in chapter 2 of Manasollasa. I didn't bring it at that time, but he talked about 36 ways. So he recollects that shloka here. He says, although I said that the unmanifested form can become manifested in 36 different forms, he says everybody cannot grasp it. Some of them are not graspable easily, relatively speaking. So he says Shatrimshat Tattva Rupasu. So there are 36 rupas, 36 conceptual ideas by which this God actually manifests, right? But Pratyakshena Upalabhyante, all the 36 are not Pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means that which is available for your Indriya. That is called Pratyaksha. Anything which is available for Indriya is called Pratyaksha. Right? Or Paroksha, whatever you call it. Otherwise, it is not. So he says there are only 8 which are available for your Indriyas. Not all the 36. That is why he chose those 8. This is his first argument. There are 8 which are easily available. Because those 8 are like that. Panchabhutas are, we are able to sort of see it and sense it.
Sensory perception can happen.
So the Indriya, through Indriya you can grasp. So that is why, that's the first argument he makes. That is why he chose those 8 murtis out of the 36 possible ways it could have been done. So these are the, I brought all the slokas here. The 36 are here. Actually, they have created some connection between those. Some other switch may be the fan. You can just check. Okay. So, what are those 36? He actually brought it in chapter 2, 41, 42, 43. Bhutaihi tu panchabhihi, panchabhutaha, which we know. Panchabhutas are 5 of them. Pranais chaturdashabhirindriyaihi. Right? He says 14. Chaturdashabhihi indriyaihi. Pranaihi. So Panchabhuta, Panchaprana, 5 plus 5, 10. Then he talks about 14. This is a Sankhya system actually. He is bringing exactly exactly that 24. So Panchabhutas, right? Panchapranas, 5 plus 5, 10. Pancha Karmendriyas, Pancha Jnanendriyas, that is the 10. The remaining of the remaining 14. That is another 10. The 4 are Buddhi, Chitta, Manas, and Ahankar. These are the 14. Chaturvimshati Tattvani, Sankhya Shastra Vido Viduhu. So those who know Sankhya know these 24. So he was recollecting. He said these are the 24 ways by which you can construct. God actually, many Mahat and Purusha and all those are there. Then he brings a few more from other schools of thought. Mahat, which is the Mahan, Mahat, Kala, time, right? And then there is a concept of Pradhanam. I couldn't read some of those, so please bear with me. I'm not able to explain what is Pradhanam. I'm only merely enumerating the some of them. I don't know all of them. Pradhanancha, Maya. Maya and Avidya, that we know. Maya is the form of the Ishvara, and Avidya is that Maya in a Jiva. So those are the two components, the Anda and the Pinda. The Maya is that power which is Ishvara power, and that manifests in us through Avidya. So those are the two. Maya, because with Maya only the gunas are coming, all those we already talked about. Maya avidye, dvivachana, tasmat avidye, vidya, vidye, vidya. Maya vidye cha purusha, right? Iti pauranikaha. So those who are pauranics, who are all, with owes the religions to Puranas and go through it and so on. Seriously, they have added these 6: Mahat Kala, Pradhana, Maya, Avidya, and Purusha. Prakriti and Purusha, that Purusha, the manifestation of that. So that makes it 24 plus 6, 30. Then he says Bindu, Nada, Bindu is one. Nada, these are all different theories of, Bindu is that one spot through which the whole universe came, and then, Shaivagamaha, they are doing all that. Nada is another Brahman, the Omkara and all that. So Bindu, Nada, Shakti, Shiva, Shanta and Atita. Atita, these are all forms of Shiva actually. This is coming through Shaivagama actually. Tataparam, Shatrimshat Tattvam Ityuktam, Shaivagama Visharadaihi. So 24 plus 6 plus 6, which he narrated in chapter 2. So he is bringing those 36, and he says many of these we can't make sense because they are not available for Pratyaksha. Only those 8 are useful for Pratyaksha. This is one argument. The second argument, which is a very interesting argument he makes, is how do I actually contemplate on these concepts? He says, please understand, there are a few things which we must understand. He says, Ameyasu manakshipram arodum narhati ityataha murtyashtakamayim bhrute guru sarvatma bhavanam. So, therefore, he says, Ameyasu manaha, the mind cannot, mind's pramati, the reach of the mind is limited. It cannot go beyond a certain point. So, therefore, it cannot, Kshipram Arodam, quickly it cannot grasp all the 36. Because some of them are so subtle, we'll have to think about what it is and so on. Kshipram Arodam na arhati. Ityataha, see there is a na arhati and ityataha, so Savarna Dirgha has happened. All those simple sandhis are all here. E plus E become E. Narhati ityataha. That's what it says. Na arhati ityataha. Iti karanena. Na arhati ityataha, because we can't grasp that easily. Some of them are so subtle, mind cannot grasp easily. That is why the Guru, here the Guru is Sankaracharya, because he is talking about this Guru, because you should not confuse with the Guru, Dakshinamurty Guru. So he says that's why Guru Sankaracharya wanted to take these eightfold forms of Sarvatma Bhava. So that ultimate Brahman is also through these 8 forms. So he selected these 8 forms, and then that's why he used the word Murtyashtakam. That's what he is trying to explain. Now the most important point is, this is the interesting part, the microcosm and the macrocosm has a one-to-one mapping. Panchabhutas are there, Panchabhutas are here. Like this, the Anda is and the Pinda are only a micro and the macro aspect of the same. This is our strong thinking, Indian thinking. So therefore, what he is suggesting in his 9th chapter description, he picked up this argument and went very well. He said, how do I actually contemplate these concepts? Best thing is, use your own body and your infrastructure and map the Anda into the Pinda. Because both are mapping one onto the other. So you reflect on it, thinking of that, you will be able to reflect on the larger concept. So why don't you do that? You meditator should contemplate on the whole notion of Ishvara in his own body, he can bring the whole anda into the pinda. This is what we found in Siksha only in a different way. Different upasana, 8 different upasanas were there. This is what all the time they were trying to help us, because otherwise it gets so abstract. We don't know how to move forward. So they say create that equivalence and constantly reflect on that idea. Then you will understand what is going on here. So he says now that he goes on to show the 8 murtis are in our body. The rest of the chapter in great detail he describes it. So interesting to read. I mean, I didn't bring all of the slokas. I brought 1 or 2 tables in which many of these ideas are well, laid out there. So what he has done, I have put it on a table. It's much easier rather than bringing all these slokas and explaining it in great detail. So the first thing is, there are 7 worlds in the anda. Om Bhuh, Om Bhuah, Om Mahah, Om Janah, Om Tapah, Ogum Satyam. We say that every day, in this pranayama mantra. There are 7 worlds. Bhuloka, Bhorloka, Swarloka, Maharloka, Satyaloka, Tapa, and all those. 7 are there. So there are 7 worlds. He says you can contemplate those 7 worlds in the 7 chakras that we have. Starting from Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipuraka, Anadi, Vishuddhi, Ajna, and he says Brahmarandra, Sahasrara Kramala. Basically, the top skull portion. He uses the word Brahmarandra, that spot through which we saw it in one of the earlier things. So he says the 7 worlds are within you, and the 7 worlds can be contemplated on these 7 chakras that are constructed in you. So there is one sloka where he says, create that equivalence, you will start seeing this connection. Then he says, what is Mahameru? He says Mahameru is this vertebral column. He says that is, in fact, there are Vedic Yajurveda, Arna Prashna, Gachanta Mahamerum. Now there is a mantra, if you remember. Gachanta Mahamerum, Kashyapo, Pashyapa, all those are there. So it is actually going to that top of the Mahameru to see that ultimate truth and so on. He says this vertebral column will take you to that, opens up in the Sahasrara Kamala. So he says that backbone is the Mahameru. You should understand that this is Upasana. Just like the Indian flag is India. India map is India. We are very comfortable with that. India means we show the map. And he says this is India. We are able to show Kanpur also, Bangalore also there. Everything in a small little dot here and there. This is Upasana. You are bringing it to now you have an internalized understanding of it. That is how you are solving the problem of grasping something which you cannot grasp. So he says Mahameru is the vertebral column. All other bones are the different mountains. So that is the second thing. Then he says this Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati are nothing but Pingala, Ida and Sushumna. So one is white. The color is also there. Ida and Pingala, there is a, I think the Ida is the, black one. Ganga is the, Pingala is the white one, I think. So it says the Ganga is the Pingala. There's a 1-to-1 mapping. Ganga is the Pingala, Yamuna is the Ida, and Sushumna is Saraswati, Antarmukha. So the Sushumna goes between in Chakra Shastra, all those they talk about. Shakti Upasakas, a lot of those they are saying. So he says, contemplate that here. Within your body, the whole system is there. So he brings Pingala, Ida and Sushumna. And he says all other holy rivers are nothing but all these other nadis. There are so many nadis. These are the 3 main nadis. Then there are other nadis. We say those are the rivers of this anda, which is also part of your pinda. Another shloka he brings that. Then he says the 7 islands which makes this universe are the 7 sapta dhatus, with this whole body is made of, which is skin and blood and muscle and fat and bones and marrow and semen. Those are the 7 sapta dhatavaha. Those are the 7 islands of the equivalent of the 7 islands of the anda. He brings that kind of equivalence. He says the fire of the sun is in the heart and the full moon is in the skull. He says you can contemplate sun in the fire of your heart and moon in the skull. So in the Sahasrara Kamala, when it opens up, it's there are different types of experiences people keep talking about. Sense of coolness, there's a sense of all that they keep talking about.
There is one bindu
So each of those have great detail. He brought all of them here. He says, what are the stars? Stars are the eyes and all other sense organs, which are all blinking and flopping and popping up and so on and so forth. See, the idea, the spirit of is, see, we should not, in an upama, we should not, as I have been saying, he is, he is the backbone of the house, or he is like a, this thing, steel body. Don't look for steel, and, then you get into the, metallurgy of steel and all that. Upamas are meant to map only to the extent of the context in which it is brought. So, what is the spirit? What he is saying? He is saying that if you contemplate the anda in your pinda, you will actually experience it. As much I am able to get a full sense of India by seeing the India map. I have got it. I don't have to travel here and there, but I'm sitting here, I can tell you from Jalandhar, if you go north, what will happen, 20 kilometers south, what will happen. As I have gone through it. That's the charm of Upasana. So that perspective is what he is bringing here. So we have to take the Upama only to that. Don't overstretch and say, how can, bone can become one island. That's not the point what we are saying. We are saying, create that equivalence, you will be able to reconcile to this concept that Anda and Pinda are the same, they are all coming from the Karana Brahman. So that is what he went. I mean, that's a great detail. I have just taken a few words and put here. Spirit of his thing is there. He says the worlds are supported by winds, which are all mentioned in several of our Puranas. These are the different types, 7 types of winds, I think. Avahana and Pravahana and Udvahana. Udvahana is one which goes up, I think. Then Samvahana, Vivahana, Parivahana, which goes, and Paravahana, which is beyond, I think, in a different, stratosphere, all those. In science also, we have different types of, atmosphere, na? The system, gaseous system or whatever. So like that, there are different types of winds which support the world. In the Puranic thing, the scientific sense also, we are saying these, there are the 4 or 5 layers which is protecting the world. In a way, supporting the world. Like that, he says the Pancha Pranas, you contemplate that in the Pancha Pranas. So in other words, what he's saying is, there is no point in talking about something as an abstract concept forever. Unless we make an effort to internalize it. The Manana and the Nididhyasana is a process which can happen only through Upasana. And so that's why, Saligrami Vishnu Drishtivata. That's a word they say. You should be able to see Vishnu in Saligrama. Then you will get the entire power of Vishnu there. That is the power of Bhakti and Upasana. If you intensely are able to focus on it and contemplate on it, you will see Vishnu there. You don't have to go all over and waste a lot of. That's why more and more Bhakti will also make you slowly, you will actually start seeing. But all of them do only that. That's why Sankaracharya again said, he said, Swaswarupa Anusandhanam Bhaktirit Abhidhiyate. He says Bhakti will take you to Swaswarupa Anusandhanam. Truly that will happen. The more and more intensely, if we can slowly start contemplating, the more and more we see the oneness, it will come full circle. You will internalize yourself and see the whole world in you, and then you become one. That is the idea which he wanted to bring through Sloka 9. So he says a couple of slokas just to, Chandrarko kalene kalanetaro pranapano sharirinam sakshi purusha ityevam murtyashtakamidam vapuhu. See, Pancha Bhutas we are able to see in our body. Where are we seeing sun and the moon? That's the next question. Na? Where are we seeing the sun and the moon? Pancha Bhutas we are able to see. He says the sun and the moon are actually in prana and apana. The next 2 slokas in which he explains it. I mean, he is actually drawing from vast resource. So we have to get into all those sources to, we are only leaving that and taking the sloka and just seeing it on the face of it, actually. So he says Chandra and Arka, which is moon and the sun. Chandra Arka Kala Netaro, they are the one which gives you the notion of time. Adityaihi Gatarahara Samkshiyate Jivitam. Vyapareihi Bahukara Gurubihi Kalopi Nagyayate. That's what he says in, Bhartrihari says in his, what is that? Vairagya Shataka. Adityaihi Gataraharahi Samkshiyate. So the notion of time, how do we know? Only it's sun and moon. If sun and moon is not there, there is no notion of time for us. The 24-hour clock is coming through them only. That's why he say they are the Kala Netaro. They are the ones who are leading us through this passage of time, but they are also in our body. And they are there. How are they? That is what he says in the, and the Purusha is the Sakshi in you. That completes the 8. So that's how he talks about. Then he says, Prapya ida pingale. So prapya ida pingale. It's a gunasandhi. Prapya, it becomes a plus e becomes a there. Prapya ida pingale. That's a dvivachana. Ida pingale. Prano moolat surya sarupah. Sarupatah. So this prana, Moola Sarupa is actually Surya. It gets its Sarupa from Surya and it originates through the Ida and Pingala. That's what this shloka is saying, right? Nasikabhyam bahirgatva. So we are exhaling and inhaling. Na? He's talking about that process. Liyate dvishad angule. He says roughly 12 inches. So the breath apparently starts from the stem of the vertebrate. That's what he is saying. From the Ida Pingala, the breath comes. It roughly travels 12 angula and then comes out. That is nothing but Surya. That is the manifestation of Surya. Is what he is saying. Moola Swarupatha Surya eva. That's what he says. Then he says, Ashtangulena Somatma Nadibhyam Antaravishat. So from the same nadi, it goes 8 inches down, actually. He talks of another thing, moon travels, that is called Apana, which is the excretion and all discharge system, right? Is a sewage treatment plant that we are talking. So he says that is the Swarupa is actually Chandra, is what he says. Mula, Mala, Mutra, Maruch, Shukrani, Apano, Visrijet, Bahihi. So he says sun and moon are manifesting in us in these forms, is what he is saying. So that's how point he's making is our body, our mind can imagine. So in our body, if we can contemplate this tattva, there is a chance we'll grasp the tattva. Otherwise, these are all theoretical knowledge. We know the knowledge thoroughly, and then I can memorize, I can tell you all that can happen. It's not going to take us really too much. That's why, in Kenopanishad it says, Pradibodha viditam matam amritatvam hi vindate. It happens in the mind. The thoughts of the mind which must take us through the modification of the mind, we should be able to get these amritatva. Understand all these grand concepts through effort that we can do with the apparatus that we have, with things that we are familiar with. Through that, if you create that upasana, after long practice, it will manifest. That's why Pratibodha Viditam Matam Amritatvam hi vindate, Atmana vindate viryam, Vidyaya vindate matam. I was just quoting that, Kenopanishad Sloka here, where it talks about how the mind is only apparatus that we have, that has to be used. So in the 9th Sloka of Dakshinamurty Stotram, the very important message is for the people who want to evolve, for the people who want to become better. Most important message Sankaracharya says is, don't stop with knowledge. Get into Swanubhuti. Make efforts to get into Swanubhuti. Upasana is what he is saying. The other side message is, I found what is this knowledge creation process itself. How, this explicit knowledge comes out as tacit, and how there is a responsibility for us to convert the tacit into explicit again. That has to happen. It cannot remain as tacit. Explicit. It has to become tacit. It cannot be an external knowledge. It has to become internal knowledge. That happens only through Swanubhuti, which happens only through Upasana. I think that is the message that comes through Shloka 9. I think 658 we will stop here. The 10th Shloka we will take. Hopefully next week, Saraswati Puja, we can still meet, I think. I hope it is fine. No? Next Monday I am here. So maybe we can meet and take the 10th Shloka, which is the last Shloka in Dakshinamurty Stotram. It's a nice way to do it on Saraswati Puja. We will do the last Shloka in Dakshinamurti. I think we will stop with that. I have only a small request. Every time we do Golu, many of you have been coming. Please take a few minutes, come and see. This time we have put a new theme. We take Golu as an opportunity to read a little Purana. So every time we read and at least understand. So this time we have read something which is many of us didn't knew before. So I hope you will also like it. Take a few minutes, just come to my house, see the Golu. We will be blessed if you can come and go. Thank you.
Okay.